let's take a look. So outside of Blackboard, these are probably the tools that I would recommend if you're considering having your students create a blog. And I would suggest this anytime you have a program where students are going to start at one point and maybe a year or 2 years down the road finish their program. The use of a blogging tool for reflection, for just documenting the work that they've done is a really powerful tool. And to have a tool that then they have access to after the program is finished is an important consideration. And so if you have them use a blogging tool that's available to them that they actually set up on their own and control, then they can use it how they want when it comes time for the program or course to be finished. And our School of Education has what they call B portfolios, and those are done with WordPress. And so students at the beginning of their program set up a B portfolio, and then throughout their program they reflect on the standards, and I'll show you an example of that. And I'll come back to this slide and we'll talk about the wikis after I show you the blogging tools. Okay, so I've already shown you Larry Cuban's blog, and it's done with WordPress. So I can see just up in the URL, I recognize the template used, but just up in the URL it says wordpress.com. So that's obviously an indication there. This is my own blog. So I've kept a blog for a number of years, and it's evolved a bit. For a while I was primarily blogging about family activities, and I've moved most of that interaction to social networking like Facebook. And so I primarily use my blog for educational technology information. So before the class we were talking about snow day e-learning tools, and so here's my blog post where I outline some of my recommendations on snow day e-learning tools that someone might want to use. You can see, like Larry Cuban, I've categorized mine, and the way that I'm organizing mine is I'm using, there's ISTE, International Society for Technology and Education. They have what they call the NET standard, National Educational Technology Standards for teachers. And so these are the 5 standards. And what I'm doing is when I write a blog post, I'm categorizing my posts by whether or not they fit into one of these 5 standards. And so that's helping me as I'm reflecting to think about what I'm writing about in terms of what teachers need to know in terms of educational technology use. And so you can see I'm a fairly frequent blogger. I actually have an automated feed that I'm someone who uses Twitter quite a bit, and so I actually have my Twitter feed runs with this as well. But you can see as you scroll down that I just mix a series of either images, videos, and text as I talk about different tech topics that I'm interested in. Okay, so that's again something that's in WordPress. WordPress makes use of widgets. So over on the right-hand side, all of these things that you're seeing. So this picture, the search. The ability, if you wanted an email subscription to my blog, you could just type your email address in here and click sign me up, and then anytime I update my blog you would just get an email message with what I've posted. Here it allows me to put my tweets on there, so as I'm using Twitter, those just flow as a feed. Each one of those is updated, and most of the time I'm using Twitter for technology, but I've also started using a GPS location tool called Gowalla that lets me comment on places that I'm actually at while I'm there. But you can just see the different pieces here. An important piece to a blog is typically a tag cloud. So here you're seeing these are tags that I've used on post. So in this particular post that you see, it's uncategorized right now. I've not gone back in and tagged it. But if we look at the bottom of this one, here's the categories that I used. And at the bottom, I tagged it with the terms audio, audioboo, iTunes, MP3, podcast, and reflection. And so looking at my tag cloud, the words that appear bigger are words that are being reflected on more. So I'm tagging using these terms more often. So, you can quickly look at my tag cloud and see that I frequently reflect on Blackboard, e-portfolios, e-learning, e-portfolios, higher education. Hopefully that's something I reflect on. iTunes, K-12, WordPress is the blogging tool. So again, by using this, click on iTunes U. These are all reflections that I've made where I've included the term iTunes U. So if you were interested in iTunes U, or if I'm trying to think, what have I said over the years about iTunes U, I can go back and look at all my blog posts that I've made that relate to that topic. Okay? So I would encourage you, if you're interested in blogging used for student tools, that you might also consider using it professionally. It's really a good way to organize your work. Okay? So those are a couple examples. One more I was going to show you. This is just what I mentioned earlier about the School of Education. This is the student's B portfolio. And so in this, you're seeing the student actually write reflections. These are reflections that they were making in class, that they were talking about whatever class they were in. Over here, these are their standards that they're talking about. So each number you see beside this indicates how many times they've reflected on that particular standard. And you see the tag cloud down here for this student, so you see the things that seem to be important for them as issues based on the tags. And one thing in this particular one is they actually have what they call standards pages. And these aren't blog pages, these are like static web pages. But if I click on this standard L, what we're seeing here is a meta reflection. So at the top of it, we see how the state defines standard L, and then we see what the students have been asked to do is write basically an essay of their understanding of that standard. And so the way they're doing that is because they've been reflecting over their program on these various parts of the standards, they can click on any of these links, see all the reflections they've made, and then go back and write this essay based on their experiences in the program. So when they're finished, the thing that they're actually being assessed on isn't their blog per se, but they're being assessed on their understanding and the artifacts they've produced that show they're competent on their standards. And so you're seeing that here. You're seeing that because they've done these reflections during the program, they have artifacts, they have evidence to share as they're going through that. So you'll see places where you could click and view documents that they've created. It's really a powerful tool. So it both, during the program, it's very process oriented. It's what's happening to me now, how I understand things right now. And at the end, it's very product oriented in here are 4 essays that show I'm competent on these standards. Yeah, each student, you can watch, and if you go to my blog, there's videos that show how they set their portfolios up. I'll just show that real quickly. What we know right now is that the people that are hiring for schools, it's not something that they're asking for. So, but we have students in the past who have told us, what I did was before I went in for my interview, I made sure everyone had the address to my blog. And when I went for the interview, when I sat down, people were introducing me as the person with the electronic portfolio. So I knew they had looked at it, and I got the job. So, they were feeling like it was an important part of the process. And we really encourage it for students who are looking for work overseas. I mean, a resume just doesn't give people enough information. But if you're wanting to go somewhere overseas or even out of state, wow, to look at all of that is really powerful to see the growth, like to see what they were thinking 2 years ago, and now here's what the final products are very professional. So in mine, under this menu, there's a B portfolio for residency certification students. There's a link to, if you clicked on that, these are all the videos that they would watch. So clicking on any of these, they'd see how to create one. That gives you an idea of the blogging tool. Let's just quickly look at some examples of Wiki tool. So I'd already shown you this education origami site. That's done with a tool called Wikispaces. We see that up here, wikispaces.com. You can go to wikispaces.com and sign up for a free education account. And the one piece of that you need to be sure you understand is their free account, at minimum, other people can see it, okay? So if you were thinking you were going to use this tool and only have your students see it and you see it, this Wikispaces, if you want a free account, is not the version. If your institution or you personally pay for Wikispaces, then it can be made private. You can have a private wiki. You can make a WordPress blog private. You don't have to let other people see it. And when I use the term private, I'm not suggesting that if, let's say, we were having counseling sessions, like our students were counseling interns, and we thought this would be a safe place to post notes because it's private. I'm saying that in a way that if you just in general aren't interested in what the world thinks about your projects, they're not going to have ready access to them. There's always possibilities that things get leaked out, which is what's happening right now with the WikiLeaks piece that's going on. So I think we live in an age where, when things are digital, it's very hard for something to be totally private, and so you just have to know that going in. So, design projects however you want to design them, but I would never encourage someone to think of putting something in a digital space that really no one should ever see that. I only think the instructor should see that, or the people in this course, even though you can have privacy settings. So with the Wiki, Wikispace isn't an option. There's also a tool, this is called Google Sites. And Google Sites is an option, and this is a project from some students that I had that were just asked to find a topic and tell me what the current research said about it, tell me what they thought was good about the technology, tell me what they thought was possibly bad about the technology, share a bibliography of where they got their resources, let me know who they were, and what their expertise was on the topic. So this is the result of that activity. This was made public, so you could go to this space, sites.google.com/site, and put in that particular URL, and you could view this content. With this particular project, one of the things that I told students was, since we were making it public, they needed to decide how they were going to handle the responsibility of it being public. And so here, when you see contact information, they made this statement: you're welcome to view and read this. They don't claim to be experts. This was a student project. They're not claiming to be experts. and they aren't open to consulting. So they're not looking for people to, contact them and, can you recommend the best whiteboard technology to me? Because they did this as a project. So, in terms of how they identified themselves, they just made this general statement, which I was fine with. But I wanted them, other groups in this class decided, hey, we really do know something. This is something we know about. And if other teachers want to contact us and ask us questions, here's our contact information. Somebody can send us an email at this Google address we set up, and one of us will watch the address and respond if somebody contacts us. So that's a kind of a real-world project that you could have students do, where they could actually provide, in this case, they provided some key information. I mean, they summarized some of the research that was out there, and then they provided their own ideas of what they thought, why they thought this technology was good, and why they thought this technology might have some issues. So having that kind of information, even if a teacher looks at this and knows these aren't experts, can spur ideas for them, and that's kind of what one of the goals of making it public was. Okay, so those are some examples. I've got one more. Here's another Wiki Spaces. This is a real-world project that I worked on, which was the state legislature had a bill that they passed on e-learning in the workplace, and they then asked for a group to be formed that actually provided resources for them. And so this e-learning work group that I was a part of, we were supposed to identify key issues in e-learning and provide that information to these senators. And so this is, again, a Wiki Spaces one. And this particular one, it was protected. Okay, so there was initially a time when this was locked down, no one could access it. It's now out there to where people can look at it, but no one can add to it. But the site is there, and there's different resources here. And so it's basically, the one that I worked on was the Open Educational Resources page. And so we just went through and defined some of the issues and explained some of the things that were going on in the area of open education. And each of the groups did that. We could all see each other's work. We could edit each other's work. And so it worked really well as a collaborative project tool. Okay, and that's, again, a Wiki environment. I think you should think collaboration, blog tool. I think primarily an individual when you're looking at that as a project.